High Arbiter Kethavar stood before the massive crystal window of the command center, watching death approach his world. The sky above Chrysalis Prime burned with unnatural fire as another wave of void swarm ships descended through the atmosphere. Each bioship looked like a twisted nightmare, all teeth and claws and hungry darkness that seemed to eat light itself. The Zalathi had ruled 3 star systems for over 2,000 years. Their crystalline bodies could focus energy into devastating weapons. Their minds could reach across space to communicate instantly. They had built cities that floated in the air and ships that moved faster than light. But none of it mattered now. The swarm had come from the dark spaces between galaxies. It ate everything. Planets, stars, entire civilizations disappeared into its endless hunger. The Zalathi had watched 12 other species fall before the swarm reached their space. Each time they had studied the battle records and felt confident they could do better. They had been wrong. High Arbiter called General Zephus from across the command room. His crystal body flickered with stress patterns, casting nervous light across the walls. The northern continent has fallen. The swarm has consumed everything. Our people there are gone. Kethavar closed his eyes and felt the psychic screams of his dying people echo through his mind. The swarm did not just kill. It absorbed everything it touched, adding the knowledge and memories of its victims to its collective consciousness. Every Zalathi death made the enemy stronger and smarter. How many ships do we have left? Kethavar asked, though he already knew the answer would bring no comfort. 43 battle cruisers, maybe 200 smaller vessels, Zephus replied. The swarm has thousands, and more arrive every hour. Through the crystal network that connected all Zalathi minds, Kethavar could feel the despair spreading across his people. They had thrown everything at the swarm. Their most powerful weapons barely scratched the bioships. Their psychic attacks were absorbed and turned back against them. Even their greatest warriors fell within minutes of engaging swarm forces. A new explosion shook the command center. Far below, another of their floating cities crashed into the surface of Chrysalis Prime. Millions more of his people died in that moment, their final thoughts adding to the growing chorus of terror in his mind. "Sir," came a voice from the communication station. "We are receiving surrender requests from the outer colonies. They want to know if they should try to negotiate with the swarm." Kethavar felt something break inside his crystal heart. Negotiate with the swarm? The enemy did not talk. It did not bargain. It only consumed. The 12 species that fell before them had tried everything. Diplomacy, technology, even self-destruction to deny the swarm their resources. Nothing worked. "Tell them to prepare for evacuation," he said quietly. "We will try to buy them time." But even as he spoke the words, Kethavar knew there was nowhere to run. The swarm had already surrounded their territory. Any ship that tried to escape would be hunted down and consumed. This was the end of the Zalathi Empire. Unless... General Zephus, Kethavar said suddenly. "Do we still have access to the deep space communication array?" "Yes, High Arbiter. But who would we call? Every species in this region of the galaxy is either dead or fighting for their own survival." Kethavar moved to the central command console and began activating systems he had hoped never to use. "We call everyone. Every species, every world, every signal we can reach. We offer them everything we have in exchange for help." "Sir?" Zephus looked confused. "What could we possibly offer that would interest alien species?" "The quantum consciousness transfer." The room fell silent. Every Zalathi in the command center stopped what they were doing and stared at their leader. The quantum consciousness transfer was their most sacred technology. It allowed them to preserve their minds beyond death, to pass their knowledge and memories to future generations. It was the secret that had made their civilization possible. "High Arbiter," Zephus whispered, "that technology is forbidden to share. The ancient laws will not matter if we are all dead," Kethavar snapped. His crystal body flared with angry light. "Would you rather die pure or live compromised?" Another explosion rocked the command center. This one was closer. Through the crystal window, Kethavar could see swarm bioships landing in the city below. Soon they would begin the final assault on the command complex. "Prepare the broadcast," he ordered. "Include all our tactical data on the swarm. Show them how it destroyed the Kithra Federation. Show them what happened to the Metallic Collective. Show them everything." His communications officer began working frantically at her station. "High Arbiter, this will take several minutes to encode properly. And we may not have that long." Then work faster, Kethavar said. He turned back to the window and watched more swarm ships descend from the burning sky. Each one carried thousands of the hungry creatures that would tear apart everything his people had built. The broadcast began transmitting on every frequency the Zalathi knew. It carried their desperate plea for help along with detailed information about the swarm's capabilities. The message showed how the enemy had destroyed species far more advanced than most galactic civilizations. It included tactical analyses that had taken the Zalathi's greatest minds years to compile. Most importantly, it offered the crown jewel of Zalathi science to anyone capable of stopping the swarm. Message sent. High Arbiter, the communications officer reported. It will reach the nearest star systems within hours. Cathvar nodded grimly. And how long before we expect a response? If anyone responds at all? Days, maybe weeks. Most species would need time to analyze the data and decide if they want to risk their own forces. We do not have days, Zephys said quietly. The swarm will break through our remaining defenses within hours. Through the crystal network, Cathvar felt the last of his orbital defense platforms die. The energy signatures of his people were winking out one by one as the swarm consumed the outer districts of the capital city. Soon they would reach the command center itself. He had sent their desperate message into the dark void of space, offering everything they had to anyone willing to fight the unstoppable enemy. But as he watched the swarm close in around them, Kethavar wondered if they had just made a terrible mistake. The data they had shared showed that no known species had ever successfully fought the swarm. Every civilization that tried was completely destroyed. What if their message only served to lead the swarm to new victims? What if they had just doomed other innocent worlds to the same fate that awaited Crystallis Prime? But as the first swarm creatures began climbing the walls of the command center, Kethavar pushed those thoughts aside. His people were dying. If there was even the smallest chance that someone, somewhere in the galaxy, might be able to succeed where everyone else had failed, then he had to take it. The message was already traveling through space at the speed of light, carrying with it the hopes and desperate prayers of a dying species. All they could do now was wait and try to survive long enough to see if anyone would answer their call. Commander Sarah Chen stood in the briefing room aboard the Earth Defense Command Station, staring at the holographic display that showed the Zalathi distress signal. Around the table sat the most senior military officers from every human colony and fleet division. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of electronics and the occasional rustle of papers. "How long ago did we receive this?" asked Admiral Marcus Torres, the grizzled veteran who commanded the Third Fleet. 14 hours, Chen replied. Our deep space monitoring stations picked it up and forwarded it here immediately. The linguistics AI cracked their encryption in about 6 hours. 6 hours? Admiral Sarah Kim looked impressed. These Zalathi must use a pretty simple code system. Actually, their encryption was extremely sophisticated, Chen said. Our AI just happens to be very good at breaking codes. We have had a lot of practice. The hologram shifted to show tactical data from the Zalathi files. Ship movements, battle formations, weapon effects, casualty reports. 12 different species all destroyed by the same enemy. The void swarm seemed unstoppable. These creatures, said General Robert Price, studying the data, they have destroyed every civilization they have encountered. Some of these species had technology far beyond what most of the galaxy possesses. Look at this. Chen highlighted a section of the data. The Cathara Federation had energy shields that could stop stellar radiation. The Metallic Collective could build ships the size of small moons. The Crystal Mines could attack with pure thought. All of them lost. Admiral Torres leaned back in his chair. What do we know about the species that fell? That is the interesting part, Chen brought up a new display. Every single one was from what galactic classifications call a garden world. Peaceful planets with stable climates, abundant resources, gentle gravity. The kind of worlds that produce advanced philosophical civilizations. Peaceful species, General Price said slowly, evolved on worlds that never challenged them. Exactly. Look at their military doctrines. Organized battle formations. Rules of engagement. Honor codes. They fight like war is a gentleman's game with set rules that everyone follows. Admiral Kim studied the display with growing interest. And this swarm? No rules, no honor. No formations. They just swarm and consume everything. Pure evolutionary pressure applied to warfare. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. These advanced civilizations had developed incredible technology, but they had never learned to truly fight. Their worlds had been so kind to them that they approached warfare like an academic exercise. "How far away is this Zalathi system?" Admiral Torres asked. "About 40 light-years from our nearest colony. 3 weeks' travel at maximum speed. And they are offering what in exchange for help?" Chen highlighted another section of the alien transmission, something called quantum consciousness transfer. According to their data, it allows them to preserve minds beyond physical death, essentially technological immortality. "That would be useful," Admiral Kim admitted. "But is it worth risking our forces against an enemy that has never been defeated?" General Price stood up and walked to the hologram. He manipulated the controls to show battle footage from the swarm's previous victories. The images were horrifying. Organic ships that looked like massive predators tearing apart elegant alien vessels. Swarms of smaller creatures overwhelming defensive positions through pure numbers. "Look at how they fight," he said. "Pack tactics. Overwhelming force. No concern for individual casualties. They treat war like a hunting expedition." "Remind you of anything?" Admiral Torres asked with a slight smile. The room erupted in quiet chuckles. Humans knew something about pack hunting. Their ancestors had spent millions of years chasing much larger prey across the African savanna. They understood that sometimes you had to accept losses to achieve victory. "There is something else," Chen said, bringing up Earth's military doctrine files. "Look at what we consider standard equipment for a peacekeeping mission." The display showed the inventory for a typical human intervention force. Kinetic weapons that fired solid projectiles at hypersonic speeds, explosive devices that could level city blocks, flame units designed to clear vegetation that could burn through solid steel, electronic warfare systems that could crash an entire planet's communication grid. "The Zalathi are asking for help," Admiral Torres said slowly. "But I wonder if they understand what kind of help they are requesting." "Sir," Chen highlighted another section of the alien data. "There is something else. Look at the description of their homeworld." The environmental data for Crystallis Prime appeared. Gravity 2.5 times Earth normal. Atmospheric pressure that would crush most garden world species. Temperature swings that ranged from boiling to freezing. Radiation levels that would be considered dangerous by galactic standards. "They think this is a harsh world?" General Price said, reading the data. "This would be considered a pleasant vacation spot by human standards." "What are you thinking?" Admiral Kim asked. Price turned to face the group. "Every species the swarm has encountered evolved on worlds that were essentially paradises. They never learned to fight dirty. They never learned to survive in conditions that actively try to kill them. But this swarm, it fights like a predator from a death world." "Are you saying what I think you are saying?" Admiral Torres asked. "The swarm has never encountered a species that also evolved on a death world. They have never fought enemies who consider warfare a survival skill instead of a political tool." Chen pulled up Earth's classification in the Galactic database. According to alien standards, Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world. Hostile environment unsuitable for intelligent life. "Yet here we are," Admiral Kim said with amusement. "The question is," General Price continued, "do we want to help these Zalathi? Getting involved in an alien war is always complicated." Admiral Torres stood up and looked around the table. "These creatures ate 12 entire civilizations. How long before they eat their way to human space?" "According to their expansion pattern, maybe 50 years. Chen calculated quickly. "Better to fight them now while they are far away than wait for them to show up in our territory." Admiral Kim agreed. "There is also the humanitarian aspect," General Price added. "We are talking about billions of innocent lives." Admiral Torres nodded slowly. "Very well. I am authorizing the deployment of the 7th Fleet to assist the Zalathi. General Price, you will command ground operations if they become necessary." "Sir," Chen said carefully, "should we warn the Zalathi about human combat methods? They might be shocked by our approach to warfare." Admiral Torres considered this for a moment. "We will explain our capabilities during transit. But they asked for help against an enemy that has never been defeated. If they want gentle assistance, they should have called someone else." The meeting broke up as officers began making preparations for departure. Ships would need to be loaded with supplies. Marines would need to be briefed on alien environments. Weapon systems would need to be calibrated for unknown enemy capabilities. As Commander Chen watched the preparations begin, She wondered what the Zalathi would think when they saw how humans fought. These peaceful crystalline beings had probably never seen warfare conducted with Earth's particular brand of creative brutality. They had asked for salvation from an High Arbiter Kethavar felt the human ships arrive before his sensors detected them. The Zalathi crystal network that connected all his people's minds suddenly filled with strange, chaotic thoughts that made no sense. Minds that seemed to think in violence and consider death an acceptable outcome for any problem. High Arbiter, General Zephys called from his station. We are detecting 47 vessels dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of our system. Kethavar moved to the tactical display, grateful that his people had managed to hold the command center for 3 more days since sending their desperate message. The swarm had pulled back to consolidate its forces for a final assault, giving them this small window of hope. Are they responding to our distress call? He asked. Yes, sir. They are transmitting identification codes and requesting permission to approach. The linguistic computers identify them as human. The name meant nothing to Kethavar. The galactic database showed humans as a minor species from a remote system, barely worth mentioning. Their world was classified as a death world, unsuitable for civilized life. What could such primitive beings possibly do against the swarm? Open a communication channel, he ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing the face of what was obviously an alien creature. The human had small eyes, flat teeth, and skin that looked soft enough to tear easily. She seemed fragile compared to the crystalline perfection of Zalathi physiology. High Arbiter Kethavar, the human said in accented but understandable galactic standard. I am Admiral Sarah Kim of the Earth Defense Forces. We received your distress call and are here to provide assistance. Admiral Kim, Kethavar replied, trying to hide his disappointment. These humans looked like they would break if handled roughly. We are grateful for your response, but I must warn you that the enemy you face has destroyed 12 advanced civilizations. Perhaps it would be better if you remained at a safe distance. The human's face did something strange, pulling the corners of her mouth upward in what the computer identified as a smile. High Arbiter, we have studied your tactical data thoroughly. We believe we can help. I do not understand. Your ships appear to be simple industrial vessels. Mining craft, construction equipment, exploration ships. Where are your warships? These are our warships, Admiral Kim replied calmly. We have found that the distinction between military and civilian technology is often artificial. Our mining lasers can cut through asteroids. Our construction mechs work in environments that would destroy most military equipment. Our exploration ships are built to survive anything the universe can throw at them. Kethavar exchanged glances with General Zephys. Admiral, the swarm has weapons that can destroy our most advanced battle cruisers. They have organic armor that adapts to energy attacks. Their hive mind coordinates thousands of ships with perfect efficiency. We understand, Admiral Kim said. May we approach your world? We would like to coordinate our defensive strategy with your remaining forces. Against his better judgment, Kethavar agreed. As the human fleet moved toward Crystallis Prime, he tried to study their ships through his sensors. They were indeed converted civilian vessels, hastily fitted with weapons that looked primitive compared to Zalathi technology. Some appeared to be held together with metal patches and crude welding. High Arbiter, Zephys whispered. These humans cannot possibly succeed where the Kithra Federation failed. Should we warn them to retreat while they still can? Before Kethavar could answer, new contacts appeared on the tactical display. The swarm had returned with massive reinforcements. Hundreds of bioships emerged from hyperspace, their organic hulls pulsing with hungry anticipation. Admiral Kim, Kethavar transmitted urgently. The swarm has arrived in force. You must withdraw immediately. Negative, High Arbiter. We are here to help. Please coordinate your remaining ships with ours for maximum effectiveness. Kethavar watched in horror as the human fleet spread out in what appeared to be complete chaos. There was no formation, no tactical coordination. The ships scattered like frightened animals, moving in seemingly random directions. What are they doing? Zephys asked, his crystal body flickering with confusion. That is not how you engage a superior enemy force. The swarm began its attack, flowing toward Crystallis Prime in the coordinated wave formation that had destroyed every other defense. The remaining Zalathi fleet moved to intercept, their elegant ships forming precise battle lines as their military doctrine demanded. The swarm tore through them in minutes. Kethavar watched his beautiful ships die one by one, their crystal hulls shattered by organic weapons that seemed to grow stronger with each kill. The swarm's bioships absorbed the energy from destroyed Zalathi vessels, using it to repair damage and spawn new attack forms. All ships, he transmitted to his surviving forces, retreat to secondary positions, prepare for final. His words were cut off as something impossible happened. The scattered human ships suddenly attacked the swarm from 12 different directions at once. But they did not attack like any military force Kethavar had ever seen. A human mining ship rammed directly into a swarm biocruiser, its industrial cutting beam carving through organic armor like it was soft crystal. As the bioship died, the human vessel backed away and immediately turned to attack another target. Construction mechs designed to work in the vacuum of space grabbed onto smaller swarm creatures and simply tore them apart with mechanical claws meant for moving asteroids. The mechs worked in teams, holding the bioships steady, while others ripped out vital organs. Human exploration ships built to survive cosmic radiation and meteor storms flew directly through clouds of swarm attack creatures. Their hulls, designed to withstand anything space could throw at them, shrugged off attacks that would cripple normal warships. "By the crystal," Zephys whispered. "They fight like animals." But it was worse than that. The humans fought like intelligent animals, pack hunters who had learned to work together over millions of years of evolution. Their seemingly chaotic movement patterns were actually coordinated attacks that struck the swarm from unexpected angles. A human commander's voice crackled over the communication channel. "All units implement Pattern 7. Remember, these things are just bugs with ships. Treat them like a termite infestation." Pattern 7 turned out to be something that made Kethavar's crystal heart freeze with terror. The human ships began herding groups of swarm vessels into tight formations, then detonating their own fusion reactors to destroy entire clusters of enemies. The humans were literally killing themselves to take out larger numbers of swarm creatures. "They are sacrificing their own ships," Zephys said in shock. "No civilized species would." "They are not civilized," Kethavar interrupted quietly. "Look at their attack patterns. They hunt in packs like predators. They accept casualties like prey animals accepting losses to save the herd. They fight like they evolved in a world that tried to kill them every day. The swarm, evolved to counter organized military resistance, could not adapt to the humans' chaotic tactics. Bioships that expected energy weapon attacks were torn apart by kinetic projectiles. Hive mind coordination systems designed to counter formation fighting became confused when faced with pack hunting behavior. Human marines in armored suits boarded swarm bioships, fighting in the organic corridors with weapons that no civilized species would use. Explosive charges, chemical flames, and projectile weapons that threw metal slugs at hypersonic speeds. They fought like they were exterminating dangerous vermin rather than engaging in honorable combat. As Kethavar watched the battle unfold, he began to understand the terrible thing he had done. His desperate message had not just called for help. It had awakened something from the dark spaces of the galaxy where worlds tried to kill their children, and only the most dangerous survived. The humans were winning, but at a cost that horrified every Zalathi who witnessed it. They fought without honor, without rules, without any concern for the elegant traditions of warfare. The Void Swarm had never encountered resistance like this. For millions of years it had consumed civilizations across the galaxy, adding their knowledge and capabilities to its collective consciousness. Every species fell the same way. First confusion, then organized resistance, then inevitable defeat as the swarm's superior numbers and adaptability overwhelmed them. But these humans were different. The swarm's hive mind tried to analyze their tactics and found only chaos. No formations, no predictable patterns, no logical strategy. The humans moved like a pack of predators that had learned to hunt together through instinct rather than training. When the swarm attempted its standard tactic of psychic infiltration, everything went wrong. The collective consciousness reached out to touch human minds, expecting to find the ordered thoughts of civilized beings. Instead, it encountered something that made the hive mind recoil in terror. Human thoughts were violent, chaotic, creative in ways that hurt to experience. These creatures thought about death and destruction as casually as other species considered mathematics. Worse, their minds were guarded by millions of years of evolution on a world that had tried to kill them. Paranoia, aggression, and survival instincts were hardwired into their consciousness. When the swarm tried to take control, it felt like grasping broken glass with bare flesh. The feedback through the psychic link was devastating. Across the swarm fleet, bioships shuddered as their pilots experienced human memories. Images of humans hunting massive predators with primitive weapons. Scenes of human children learning to fight before they could properly walk. Memories of wars fought with such brutality that even the swarm found them disturbing. What are these creatures? The collective mind screamed across space. They think in violence. They dream of conquest. Their very existence is warfare. But even as the swarm reeled from the psychic contact, it began to understand something important about its enemies. The humans were not fighting for conquest or glory. They were fighting to protect something. Through the crystal network, High Arbiter Kethvar felt the swarm's confusion and fear. The alien hive mind was broadcasting its terror openly, no longer concerned with maintaining psychic discipline. For the first time since the war began, the enemy was afraid. General Zephys, he called across the command center. Are you monitoring the swarm's psychic emissions? Yes, High Arbiter. They seem to be in some kind of distress. Their coordination is breaking down. On the tactical display, the evidence was clear. Swarm bioships were no longer moving in perfect unison. Some were attacking targets that other ships had already engaged. Others were pulling back when they should have been advancing. The hive mind that had made them unstoppable was fracturing. A new voice came over the communication channel. High Arbiter, this is General Robert Price commanding human ground forces. We are detecting massive swarm reinforcements approaching your system. Looks like they are bringing everything they have. Kethvar checked his sensors and felt his crystal heart sink. Thousands of new bioships were dropping out of hyperspace. The swarm was committing everything to this battle, determined to crush the humans before they could spread their dangerous influence to other systems. General Price, he transmitted back. There are too many of them. Even with your unusual tactics, we cannot survive this assault. High Arbiter, came Admiral Kim's voice. We are implementing Protocol Sanctuary. All human ships will form a defensive perimeter around your world. We will not allow the swarm to reach your people. Kethvar watched in amazement as the human fleet repositioned itself. Instead of retreating or preparing for a fighting withdrawal, they were forming a living shield around Crystallis Prime. Every human ship moved to place itself between the swarm and the Zalathi homeworld. General Price, he transmitted urgently, your ships will be destroyed. There are too many enemy vessels to stop them all. High Arbiter, the human general replied calmly. You asked for our help. This is how humans help. The second wave of swarm ships attacked with desperate fury. The collective mind, still reeling from its contact with human consciousness, drove its forces forward in a massive assault designed to overwhelm any defense. The humans met them with something that defied every military doctrine in the galactic database. They did not try to win. They simply refused to lose. Human ships threw themselves at swarm vessels with suicidal determination. Mining craft rammed biocruisers while detonating their fusion reactors. Construction mechs grabbed onto enemy ships and held them in place, while other human vessels destroyed both attacker and defender. Exploration ships flew directly into swarms of attack creatures, using their heavily armored hulls as weapons. They are committing suicide, Zephys whispered, watching the display with horror and fascination. They are killing themselves to protect us. But Kethvar was beginning to understand something deeper about human nature. These were not suicide attacks. This was how a species that had conquered a death world approached the concept of protecting others. Every human death was calculated to save more lives than it cost. A human marine unit boarded a massive swarm bioship that was trying to break through their defensive line. Instead of fighting to capture the vessel, they simply planted nuclear charges throughout its organic structure and detonated them. The explosion took out 3 other swarm ships that were too close to escape. Command to all units, came Admiral Kim's voice over the communication channel. Remember, we are not just fighting for ourselves. Every person on that planet below depends on us. Make every shot count. The humans fought like parents protecting their children, willing to sacrifice everything to ensure the survival of others. It was a concept that the swarm's collective mind could not understand or counter. How do you defeat an enemy that considers its own death an acceptable price for victory? The battle raged for hours. Human ships died one by one, but each death took multiple swarm vessels with it. The humans turned their industrial equipment into weapons, their civilian technology into instruments of war. They fought with tools meant for construction and exploration, using them with deadly effectiveness against an enemy that had never encountered such improvised tactics. As the sun set over Crystallis Prime, something unprecedented happened. The swarm began to retreat. "High Arbiter," Admiral Kim transmitted. "Swarm forces are withdrawing from your system. We are pursuing to ensure they do not regroup for another attack." Kethavar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The Void Swarm, which had never retreated from any battle, was fleeing. The collective mind that had consumed 12 civilizations was running away from a force less than half its size. "Admiral Kim," he managed to say, "how is this possible? The swarm has never been defeated." "High Arbiter," the human replied. "The swarm never met anyone who evolved on a world that fought back. They have been hunting sheep. Today they met wolves." Through the crystal network, Kethavar could feel the relief and gratitude of his surviving people. But beneath those emotions was something else. A growing awareness that they now owed their existence to a species that made the swarm look tame by comparison. The humans had saved them, but in doing so had revealed themselves to be something far more dangerous than any enemy the galaxy had ever known. They were protectors who fought like predators, guardians who killed without hesitation or remorse. Three weeks after the battle, Crystallis Prime looked nothing like the world High Arbiter Kethavar remembered. Where swarm bioships had crashed and burned, new structures rose from the crystal landscape. Human construction teams worked around the clock, rebuilding his civilization with the same terrifying efficiency they had shown in combat. Kethavar stood in what had once been the ruins of the northern capital, watching human engineers direct massive machines that lifted entire city blocks back into the sky. The floating cities that had taken his people centuries to build were being restored in a matter of days. "High Arbiter," General Zephys approached from behind, his crystal body flickering with patterns of confusion and awe. "The humans have completed reconstruction of the eastern continent. All infrastructure is operational again." "How long did they say that would take?" Kethavar asked, though he already knew the answer would strain belief. 6 days. "They finished in 4. Kethavar nodded slowly. Nothing about the humans made sense according to normal galactic standards. Their machines were supposedly primitive, yet they accomplished tasks that should have required decades of work. Their technology looked crude, yet it functioned in environments that would destroy the most advanced Zalathi equipment. A human in an environmental suit approached them, moving easily despite the crushing gravity that would have flattened most galactic species. Kethavar had learned to recognize the individual humans by their slightly different facial features, something that had taken considerable practice. "High Arbiter," the human said through his suit's communication system. "I am Dr. Michael Chen, head of the reconstruction effort. We have completed emergency repairs to your primary cities. Full restoration should be finished within the month." "Dr. Chen," Kethavar replied carefully, "your people have accomplished miracles here. But I must ask, what do you require in payment for this assistance?" The human did something with his face that the translation software identified as a smile. "High Arbiter, you offered us the quantum consciousness transfer technology in exchange for defeating the swarm. We have discussed your offer, and we respectfully decline." Kethavar felt his crystal matrix freeze with shock. "You decline? But that technology represents the pinnacle of Zalathi science. It offers immortality itself." "We appreciate the gesture," Dr. Chen said gently, "but we have learned that sometimes the struggle makes you stronger. Our mortality gives our choices meaning. Without the possibility of death, victory loses its significance." Behind his environmental suit, the human's eyes held depths that Kethavar was only beginning to understand. These creatures lived such short lives compared to other galactic species, yet they accomplished more in their brief existence than most civilizations managed in millennia. "Then what do you want from us?" Kethvar asked. Nothing, High Arbiter. You called for help and we responded. That is what neighbors do. Neighbors. The word carried implications that made Kethvar's crystal heart flutter with mixed emotions. The humans were claiming the Zalathi as part of their territory, their responsibility to protect. But unlike the ancient empires that had conquered through force, the humans seemed to protect through choice. Admiral Sarah Kim approached their group, her boots making soft sounds on the crystal ground. High Arbiter, we will be leaving a small monitoring station in your outer system. Nothing intrusive, just a communications relay and a few patrol ships. We want to make sure the swarm does not return. How many ships? General Zephys asked nervously. A squadron, maybe 12 vessels. Kethvar exchanged glances with his general. A human squadron had destroyed the largest swarm fleet ever assembled. What could such a force accomplish if it chose to be hostile rather than helpful? Admiral Kim, he said carefully, your people have shown us great kindness. But I must ask, what happens if we disagree with human policies in the future? What if our species have conflicts of interest? The human admiral considered this question seriously. High Arbiter, we are not conquerors. We will not force our values on your people or demand tribute. But if someone threatens you again, we will respond. That is not a threat. It is a promise. The difference between those two concepts was something Kethvar was still learning to understand. Humans seemed to view protection as a natural obligation, rather than a tool for control. They fought and died for other species without demanding anything in return, except the right to continue protecting them. Over the following days, Kethvar watched the human fleet prepare to depart. Their industrial ships packed up the massive construction equipment they had used to rebuild Zalathi cities. Their exploration vessels gathered data about the local system to update their star charts. Their converted warships ran final diagnostics on weapon systems that had proven devastatingly effective against the swarm. On the day of departure, Admiral Kim requested a private meeting with Kethvar in his rebuilt command center. She arrived alone without guards or weapons, showing a level of trust that few galactic leaders would have extended to an alien species. High Arbiter, she said, settling into a chair designed for human physiology, there is something we need to discuss. The swarm was not completely destroyed. Kethvar felt his crystal body dim with fear. What do you mean? Our pursuit ships tracked the survivors to the edge of the galaxy. They have fled into dark space beyond the reach of any known civilization. But creatures like the swarm do not give up easily. They will be back someday, probably stronger and better prepared. How long do we have? Years, maybe decades. But they will return, and when they do, they will bring everything they have learned about fighting humans. Admiral Kim stood and moved to the crystal window that overlooked the rebuilt capital city. High Arbiter, your distress call changed more than just the fate of your people. It announced to the galaxy that humans exist and are capable of defeating enemies that no one else can handle. Is that a problem? It could be. There are species out there who will see us as a threat rather than protectors. Some will want to test our capabilities. Others will try to use us as weapons against their enemies. Kethvar joined her at the window, watching human transports prepare for departure. What will you do? What we always do. Protect those who need protecting and eliminate threats to innocent life. But it will be more complicated now. The galaxy knows about us. Admiral Kim turned to face him directly. High Arbiter, you sent out a call for help and received more than you bargained for. We saved your people, but we also announced to the universe that the Deathworlders have arrived. Nothing will be the same. As the human fleet departed Zalathi space, Kethvar stood in his command center and contemplated the future. His people were safe, their civilization restored. But they now lived under the protection of a species that could casually accomplish the impossible and considered violence a normal solution to problems. The humans had established monitoring stations throughout Zalathi territory. They promised to respond if the swarm returned. They offered friendship and alliance without demanding tribute or submission. But Kethvar understood the unspoken truth behind their generosity. The Zalathi were no longer an independent species. They were part of something larger now, something that spanned star systems and protected entire civilizations. They had been adopted by humanity, claimed as family by creatures who fought like demons and protected like angels. In his private chambers that night, Kethvar composed a journal entry that would become part of Zalathi historical records. We called for salvation and received it. The humans came to our aid when no one else would, fought an enemy that had never been defeated and asked for nothing in return except the right to keep us safe. But we have learned that those who can destroy monsters may themselves be monsters of a different kind. The humans saved us not because they are peaceful, but because they have chosen to direct their terrible capabilities toward protection rather than conquest. We are safe now, but we will never again assume we understand what safety truly means. The galaxy has learned that in the dark spaces between stars, on worlds that try to kill their children, evolution has created something unprecedented, a species of predators who hunt to protect rather than consume. The Void Swarm called us to ask what manner of demons these humans were. I think I finally understand the answer. They are the demons we summoned to fight our demons, and they have chosen to stay. Far above Crystallis Prime, human patrol ships began their endless watch, ready to respond to any threat that might emerge from the darkness between stars. The galaxy's most dangerous